Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro. 1, 2,
3. All right. All right, what's up, everybody? It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Glad you could join us on a Monday. We are broadcasting live from my kitchen once again, and glad you could be with us. And by the way, if you don't believe I'm broadcasting live, well, all you have to do is watch our YouTube, the Vegas Take page. That's where we broadcast live every day. So we are here, we are live to bring you the latest information on the coronavirus, and we got a big show lined up for you today. Obviously, we are going to get to some of our guests coming up in hour number 3. We'll be speaking to Carl Goldman. This is the man from California who was diagnosed with the coronavirus, got it on the Princess cruise several months back, and we've had him on the show. Well, he's been released now. Let out back into the wild, so to speak. He's going to be joining us in hour number 3 just to talk about the trials and tribulations and everything that he's had to go through. So a lot to get to, a lot to go over. Certainly we will get to Donald Trump and his response, things he's been saying in his administration over the last couple days. And even Dr. Fauci was asked a little bit about some of Donald Trump's statements that he's made that have not been factual. And Fauci did respond, and he responded in the right way. So we'll get to that coming up in hour number 2. I always say this. Not always, but I've said this over the course of the last week when we were broadcasting last week. This show is about you. So we're certainly going to be opening up the phone lines a little bit later in the show. We're going to be taking your calls. I just want to speak from my own perspective real quickly. I moved to Las Vegas from Connecticut pretty close to 20 years ago. And the reason why I did that, well, there was a lot of reasons. I got a job in radio. That was obviously the main reason. But I hated living in Connecticut, and the reason why I hated living in Connecticut is because everything closed. I was a kid in my early 20s. I wanted some excitement. I wanted some fun. You hear the word Las Vegas, the first thing that enters your mind when you're in your early 20s is fun, right? It's an adult playground. So I moved out here because I wanted to get away from Connecticut. I wanted to get away from the boringness, for lack of a better term, that is Connecticut. It's a pretty, city that I grew up in, a nice state to raise a family, but it wasn't for me. And that's why I moved out here, because I love the excitement of this city. Well, there is literally, and I mean literally, nothing to do in this city but stay at home and watch TV. You can't go to a movie. You can't go to a restaurant unless you're picking something up. You certainly can't go to a casino. You can't go to a show. There is literally nothing open. So what did I do this weekend? A day in the life of Brian Shapiro. What did I do the first weekend where there's literally nothing to do? Well, Friday night, went over to a friend's house and watched a little Curb Your Enthusiasm. Just watched a bunch of TV, went home, took care of some things at the house. And then on Saturday, I noticed that there was going to be some live sumo wrestling. That's what I watched. I went over to Chris Wynn's house, friend of the show, and we were watching some sumo wrestling because it was the only live sports that was on TV. You actually could have bet on it, too, which I didn't know. So we're watching some sumo wrestling, which, by the way, I've never watched before. I've watched a few videos on YouTube, but I've never watched a live sumo wrestling match, either in person or on television, and this was live on TV. So that was my Saturday night. And then we decided to, after one of the sumo fights, me and Chris, we decided to take a trip to 7-Eleven. It was either that or the supermarket. Those were the only two places that were open. So we go to 7-Eleven. I wanted to get a Slurpee, so I got a Slurpee. A couple other things. We got some snacks, and I'm talking to the clerk. And as I walk into the 7-Eleven, I see the slot machines are all closed. They're not on. So I'm talking to the clerk, and the clerk says to me, "Hey guys, how's it going? You're my first customers we've had in an hour," which surprised me a little bit because I would think if they're one of the few places that's open, you would go to 7-Eleven. And he said, "It looks like I'm going to be losing my job." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, what the governor's trying to do, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to shut down these 24/7 places and close us down at 10 p.m. and work, do these normal hours like they're doing with the supermarkets." And I said, "Well, the reason why they're closing the supermarkets, it was my understanding, it's because nobody was making them do it. It's because they needed to restock." But this guy, and I don't know if this is true or not, but he told me he heard from the grapevine that, from the Slurpee grapevine, so to speak, that they're trying to close down these 24/7 places to just normal business hours. And I'm in the 7-Eleven, and then 2 cops show up. And they say, hey, we're looking for this guy, blah, 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 blah. I guess a suspect that had committed a robbery. And you look at downtown, and you look at some of these businesses downtown, particularly some of these casinos, they're all boarded up like there's a hurricane coming. And the reason why they're doing that is they're trying to protect themselves from looters, people that are going to go into their stores and rob them or just break in. I shouldn't say rob because there's going to be nobody there, but rob them when there's nobody there. And it's crazy. It's crazy. Again, we're looking at the Las Vegas Strip, one of the biggest tourist attractions, and it has been for decades on the planet. And all these casinos are closed. And it's not just the casinos. You think about the gambling aspect of this. It's not just the gambling. There's a lot of restaurants and the entertainment and all the businesses that are inside these casinos and outside these casinos. It is a ghost town. And this isn't, somewhere in the middle of the country. This isn't some weird city where population, 5,000. This is Las Vegas. I mean, I'm driving down one of the biggest intersections on the planet, which would be Flamingo and Las Vegas Boulevard, and there's nobody there. And it's really freaky, and it's really weird. And this all comes at a time where we lose one of the most famous musicians, in the history of this country. And hopefully you all know who I'm talking about, because the song The Gambler is probably one of my favorite gambling songs of all time. Of course, I'm talking about the late, great Kenny Rogers. Obviously, there it is.
As if things couldn't get worse.
Know when to run. Yeah, this guy's awesome. But, on a normal day, or I should say a normal week, this would be an enormous story, right? I mean, I'm not going to say it's like losing Michael Jackson or Prince, but the guy's pretty close. He's pretty much up there. And if you're listening to that song, Kenny left us. I mean, we had a joke that we said, there's nothing funny about, losing Kenny Rogers, but, somebody said a joke off the air and said, well, he knew when to go because he left before the apocalypse was going to hit us, but this would have been an enormous story if not for the coronavirus, because Kenny Rogers is a legend, similar to, when Tom Petty died, so on and so forth. He's right up there. He's a Hall of Famer. And then I listened to that song, The Gambler, which is a legendary song. And I'm thinking to myself, there's nobody gambling unless you have some home game going right now. There's nobody playing poker. There's nobody gambling.
Well, I mean, theoretically, you're gambling when you go to the store right now, Brian.
Well, to an extent.
You're gambling with your life.
Every time I've gone to the store, I've gotten those wipes as I walk out.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm not a germaphobe. Clearly, if you look at my apartment, you'll know I'm not a germaphobe. But, I've gone to the gas station, the supermarket. Every time I do that, I'm washing my hands when I get home, because I think that's a really important thing to do. But, guys, we are living in unprecedented times. I don't need to tell you that. These are really weird times in this country, really weird times here in Las Vegas. So I'm wondering, how is anybody handling this from a psychological standpoint? For me, I'm going crazy. I'm going crazy because I have ADD to begin with, but I'm the type of person that likes to go out a lot. And when I say go out, I'm not saying get drunk and go out and go to the nightclubs. I've never been that person. But when I say go out, I like going out with someone to dinner. I like going to movies. I do like playing poker once in a while. I just like being out and doing things.
He enjoys being seen in a public place with an attractive woman 2 or 3 times a week.
Well, that's part of it.
No, that's definitely a large part of it.
I'll tell you something. If you're dating someone, or you're on one of these dating apps, and you've never met that girl before, or it's very early, you can't take somebody out to dinner. You can't say, hey, let's go see a show. The only option, and to a lot of scumbags out there, they would normally ask this under regular conditions, but they'd say, come to my apartment, right? Well, what else can you do? Take a walk? I guess you could do that. I guess you could be creative and say, let's go to the park and have a picnic. But other than that, I'm not sure what else you can do.
You can't go to Red Rock anymore, and you can't go to Lake Mead anymore. Both those have just been shut down.
Right.
Why was it was shut? Red Rock was shut down because too many cars, too many people were trying to go to the park.
I mean, I really have no idea.
I think that's what ended up happening. It just was too many people.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because speaking of too many people, what about these beaches in Florida? Okay, what about the governor of Florida, who continues to leave these beaches open so these morons could just flock the beaches? A lot of these young people that were on spring break, they don't care. And you know what? They should be mocked, because they're putting everybody at risk. This is a very serious situation. So I ask once again, what is wrong with the governor of Florida? Why did he not shut down these beaches? I also ask these things. You have to be consistent, and we've talked about consistency on this show. If you're shutting down casinos and stuff, why is the president saying it should be a state-by-state matter, and it should be, the whole country should be shut down? It's either the whole country shut down or it's not. I'm tired of this stuff where certain states are on martial law and then certain states are not. It doesn't make any sense to me. Be consistent. Let the whole country do it or not.
Well,
it's one or the other.
That comes down to the viruses in that particular state. Like, for example, New York State has roughly, I think, 17 or 18,000 cases, and about 15,000 of those are in New York City. And that makes up about 42 to 43% of all the confirmed coronavirus cases in the United States. So in those particular places, obviously that's going to take place. But if there aren't a lot of cases so far, and that could be because of a lack of testing for a number of reasons, but if there's not a lot of cases in that state or that city so far, that's not going to take place. And I find that to be a little bit reasonable.
Well, here's why I don't find it reasonable, because there's no law that says you can't drive from one state to another. So all those people in New York, anybody could drive to another state. Right. Now, if there were...
And that's been a conversation as of late, too. Because the conversation amongst New Yorkers has been, should we leave the state? Should we get out of New York City? And if that takes place, you're literally looking at a situation where the National Guard is actually taking control of the border.
But it's too late now.
Which would echo the movie Contagion, which I'm sure everybody has watched, now that it's on Netflix and Amazon Prime.
And the reason why I say it's too late now, and I know the president likes to brag about what he did with China and not allowing people in that country to enter the United States. It was too late then, and it's too late now. Same thing applies to this situation. If you're going to, I'm not going to use the term hold people hostage because I think they're doing the right thing. But if you're going to make it martial law like they did in California, if you're going to make it martial law like they did in Connecticut, do it everywhere and be consistent. This is going to get worse. And our politicians are failing us. And we're going to get to the national response coming up in hour number 2. But I'm talking about locally right now. I understand that the governor and the mayor do not see eye to eye on a lot of things. But I'm telling you, this is a serious situation. It's getting worse, and I can't stand it when people compare it to the flu. I can't stand it when people say, oh, it's no different than the flu, because look at the mortality rate of the flu, and look at the mortality rate right now of the coronavirus. They're not comparable.
I'll actually push back on that, Brian. There's roughly 46,000 confirmed cases in the United States. And I believe, 39,000 confirmed cases in the United States and roughly 460 deaths. The mortality rate as it sits is about 1.2%.
Which is much higher than the flu.
Now you're not factoring the fact in that we have no idea when this virus came to the United States. We don't know how long it's been circulating.
No, we sort of have an idea.
No, we actually don't.
Yes, we do.
It could have. A lot of people have had these symptoms.
There are a lot of professionals
back in December, back in January.
There are a lot of
Brian, what I'm saying is this virus could have been here for quite some time. There could be people in the United States right now that are immune to it that do not know it. And if the conversation that, like, for example, the governor of Ohio said that he thinks he had 100,000 cases 2 weeks ago. Let's say right now that because a lot of people have not been tested, right? That's the whole worry. Let's say there's 200,000 confirmed cases in the United States as of right now and 465 deaths. Do you know what that translates to a mortality rate?
But here's the problem with what you're saying.
It's actually less deadly than the flu at that point. The problem is we don't know how many people actually have. No, it is true.
Dr. Fauci was on national television yesterday. And Dr. Fauci said that no matter what happens down the road, no matter what happens, there is no question that this virus is far more serious and will kill more people, and the mortality rate will be much higher than the flu has ever been. That is what Dr. Fauci said. This is a guy who's been doing this for his entire life. I'm going to listen to what he says, and to me, that is the main reason why we're in the situation we're in now, as far as all these businesses being in lockdown. It's the reason why we're broadcasting our show from my apartment. Okay? That's why. That's why these casinos are shut down. People need to understand that. Now, you could look at it and say, well, it's not as bad as people think. It's just not true, man. And when you listen to the professionals that are talking about this virus, not Donald Trump, not politicians, I'm talking about the doctors, the people that know. And Dr. Fauci, make no mistake about it, he knows. At least he has a lot more answers than we do. He said it himself. the mortality rate will not be comparable to the flu. And he said it is very dangerous to compare the flu to the coronavirus. They are not comparable, and the coronavirus is far more serious and will have, when it's said and done, a far higher deadly rate than the flu. I think that's very, very important to convey to the American people. Here's why. If you keep downplaying this virus, you're going to continue to have these idiots on these beaches in Florida. You're going to continue to have these idiots that'll have parties of 50 people or more. You're going to continue to have these idiots, some of which continue to remain their business open, whether that be a restaurant, not just for to-go orders. And that is why I've heard that they're trying to put into effect some sort of laws in this state that would not allow you, just what they're doing in California, Connecticut, those other states, to open, or you can get arrested or cited. There are people that are downplaying this virus, and they continue to downplay the virus. Let me tell you something. Even a week ago, Ron Paul, a week ago, said that this was a hoax. He wrote an article, and then we learn a couple days ago his son has the coronavirus. Those people are ignorant. And by the way, speaking of Rand Paul, who now has the coronavirus, who tested positive, the morning he found out he got the virus, he decided to work out in the Senate gym. In the Senate gym and in the Senate pool, he decided, you want to talk about irresponsible? That is like finding out you have AIDS and having unprotected sex with a woman and not telling her. It is a crime.
And the only reason that he knew he had the virus, he was asymptomatic. He didn't have any symptoms of it. He wasn't feeling unwell, but he had traveled internationally, and they were worried that he had possibly been in contact with someone with the virus.
Which I understand. And I'm glad he was tested. But, JD, do you understand my point?
What I'm saying is, Brian, there are a lot of people across the United States. Could be some in Nevada. Could be quite a few in California, Washington, New York City, or New York State that don't know they have this virus. But they have this virus, and this virus will not give them any symptoms at all. There's a lot of people across the country. And
that's what makes it more dangerous.
I'm not suggesting that it doesn't. And whatever that number is, that does drop the mortality rate.
And I understand partly of what you're saying, but again, Dr. Fauci says even if that mortality rate does drop, and he talked about that, it's still going to be a higher mortality rate than the flu. It's more serious than the flu. And by the way, speaking of Rand Paul, this is the same idiot who voted against the 9/11 fund for those 9/11 heroes to give them the care they need. And now this is the moron who's now in quarantine. The morning of finding out that he had the virus, he was working out in the Senate gym. But anyway, let's move on. I don't even want to talk about Rand Paul because that guy is such a moron. I mean, it's such a moron. And then we move on, and this is why I say it's important not to downplay the virus. There are idiots throughout the country that are taking advantage of people and throughout the world. A man made fake coronavirus treatment kits. He's now in jail, taking advantage of people. There's a man in court that is accused of trying to sell these fake coronavirus treatments kits, and it's happening around the world. He's not the only person. There was a man in a Walmart who went on Facebook Live, thought it was funny to say that he has the coronavirus. Said, I got the coronavirus. I got the coronavirus. There's a video of it. It was on TMZ. It was all over the web. He was arrested. You can't do things like that. There are people that are trying to make light of this situation. There's a South Carolina man that was charged with a fake doctor note saying that he had the coronavirus. Why? I have absolutely no idea. The point being, there are people throughout the country that are taking advantage of people, and we'll get to Wayne Allyn Root coming up in the next segment because he was on our show on Friday, and we had a very interesting discussion, to say the least.
Oh, Brian, you completely dismantled him. I mean, it was a very, very good interview on your behalf. He was not prepared, and he basically lost his cool on the airwaves.
Yeah, if you don't know who this guy is, Wayne Allyn Root, he's a guy that does a radio show outside of Vegas, syndicated host, used to work for the Review Journal. We're going to get to the fallout of our interview and the fact that some people, and Wayne Allyn Root, to be fair, he's not the only one that's pushing some of these silver products, alkaline products. You know, there are others that have done the exact same thing, and the Attorney General of New York is now involved. We'll get to that coming up in the next segment. We have a Florida commissioner who's also making public statements and pushing these types of products. We'll get to that coming up next. The point I'm trying to make is there are people in these difficult times. Don't get me wrong. There are many people that are heroes, that are doing great things, that are helping people. There's no question about that. There are some great people out there. But there are also some people out there that are taking advantage of us. They're taking advantage of maybe less fortunate people, maybe people that are not making the best decisions, but they're taking advantage of us.
They're trying to capitalize off of those particular situations. Then you have people that just want the views. They just want to make a video where they're pretending to have the coronavirus and they have all these different symptoms and they get all this Facebook attention and all this Twitter attention and that's all just predicated on social media just wanting that attention. And so you have both sides that are taking place.
But my point is, it's important for all of us to be responsible and not downplay this virus. Now, especially if you're elderly or you know someone that's elderly or you have family members, I'm very concerned about my family. My parents are not young. I'm very concerned about them. My dad was playing golf yesterday. I said, Dad, I give him a call. He's like, Brian, I'm on the golf course. I said, wait a second. I thought the whole state was in government lockdown. He said, well, I called the golf course and they're open. I don't blame my dad. I blame the golf course. That's irresponsible.
But for your dad, that's a peace of mind. That's something he's done his entire life.
Well, he's getting away from my mom.
Exactly.
That's the peace of mind.
And that matters, Brian. I mean, I was around my 2-year-old daughter for more than I've ever been around her in the last 4 days. I mean, just constantly. I mean, 24/7. And I definitely, like, this right now for me is a break. And
do you think it challenges
and that same perspective? This right now
challenging relationships around the world.
This challenges marriages, especially in a place like New York State.
I'm not married, so I don't know.
Where 100% of people who don't have who don't have jobs, essential jobs, are literally they're forced to stay at home. You have close living quarters. You have maybe a 900 because it's so expensive to live there. So places where it's very expensive to live. And then you're around your wife. You're around each other. Your kid is there. If you have one, maybe you have two, maybe you have three, all day long. Plus, and then when you need a release, you've got no sports. You can't go to the gym. You can't go to the salon. You can't hang out with your friends. It's going to challenge a lot of relationships across the United States, and I'm excited to see what the metrics are. It's kind of interesting from a socio economic perspective, kind of how everything works out, and what the childbirth rate will be in the next 9 months, as well as the divorce rate.
Well, I think the divorce rate is certainly going to go up. I think the coronavirus is going to make the divorce. Here's something else.
On the downside of things, domestic abuse is up quite a bit as well.
Yes, and that's horrible. That's unfortunate. Speaking of marriages, the wedding chapels are forced to close down as well, which makes a lot of sense to me. Imagine if you lost a family member and then you were told you can't have more than 10 people at your funeral for your father or mother. I mean, it's just awful. All right, we're going to take a quick break. So when we come back, we had a very fiery interview with syndicated right-wing conspiracy theorist talk show host Wayne Allyn Root. There's been a lot of fallout since that interview, and when I say fallout, not on us, on him. I'll explain what that means coming up next, and we'll take a quick break, and we'll also open up the phone line, 702-257-5396. Again, that number, 702-257-5396. Take a break. Be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take. All right, welcome back. It is The Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. Yeah, we're doing it. We're broadcasting live from my apartment in quarantine. But we're going to try to bring you the latest information and the best information that we can on this show. And I also mentioned this show is also about you, and that's the reason why we're doing this. It's about you. So we certainly want to hear from you, and we'll try to take some phone calls here in a few minutes. That number is 702-257-5396. Again, 257-5396. Many of you, I would imagine, are home. You might be streaming. You might not be in your car. So we are also, besides the KDWN website, we're also streaming live on our YouTube page, The Vegas Take, if you want to check us out there as well. So Friday, if you were listening to the show, you listened to a very intense interview with a nationally syndicated radio host out of Vegas who many call a right-wing conspiracy theorist. I think that's very fair to call him that. And I had talked about him the day before, and I said some not-so-nice things about him, and the reason why I did that is because he was peddling a silver alkaline product. And we've heard from everybody that actually knows something about the coronavirus, the Food and Drug Administration, all types of different departments across the country saying this does not only cure the coronavirus, there's no evidence in this country to support the fact that it does anything to help you if you have the coronavirus. So he was peddling that product. Whether he was getting paid for it or not is not the point. The point is he tweeted out kills virus in talking about the coronavirus. That is dangerous, okay? There's a problem with that I had, and that's why I called him out last week on Thursday. So he wanted an apology from me. He reached out to some people and wanted an apology from me, and I told our producer, okay, if I said some things that bothered him, I have no problem with apologizing to him on the air, The only condition is come on the show so I could defend why I was so frustrated. And I could go over some of the comments that he's made in the past that were very controversial that he's never apologized for. For example, he's tweeted on his page. He's also said on his show that the use of the N-word is the same as calling somebody old. I called him out on that, and he doubled down on it. Now, only a fool would say that. Only a fool would say calling somebody old or an old geezer or whatever is the same as calling somebody the N-word. It's ridiculous. He also said that he believed Muslims were the cause for the October 1 shooting here. And then when I asked him to apologize, because clearly he's wrong, he put the fault on police officers who allegedly texted him the day of. Completely irresponsible. If you make a mistake, apologize for it. He said that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton have had gay relationships. His response was a laugh, and then I said, how would you like it if somebody said that about you? Then he called me some names. All I was doing was questioning him on the things that he said, the horrible and ridiculous things that he said over the course of his career. That's all I did. And then he started to call me names. And this man has said, and another example I'll give out, is if somebody says something ridiculous, have some sort of facts on a basis of an opinion. And what he said was that Democrats were getting paid by Mexican drug lords because of the border wall situation. And then I said to him, okay, if that's your opinion, that's fine, right? But can you give me one specific example of one Democrat that has been paid off? And he said, I don't have to give you any examples. Well, if you're not going to give me any examples, then you're no better than Mr. InfoWars himself. So we got into this debate. We got into this. It turned into an argument, and it turned nasty here at the end. And I want to play a little bit of audio. At the end of the interview, that's when he started calling me names. By the way, he started calling me names first in the interview on Friday. So here is a part of my interview towards the end of the interview when things went south between myself and Wayne Allyn Root.
You're showing what a nasty, petty person you are, and you got.
Oh, I'm nasty and petty because you can't defend your ridiculous tweets, but I'm the nasty, petty one. Let me tell you something. A nasty, petty person compares the N-word to calling somebody old. That's a nasty, petty person. Do you understand where the N-word came from? Do you understand how hurtful it is to African Americans?
10 minutes ago, but I try to be nice and listen to people, but you don't want it. You have no interest in it.
Okay, defend any of the tweets. I'm listening. Go ahead.
I tried to find common ground between you and I.
We have zero common ground. Zero.
We were supposed to get along. Your general manager, I'm sure, put pressure on you to apologize, and that's why you called me. And you didn't apologize. You turned it into a vicious attack.
You called me names in this. You called me names in this interview. You called me names in this interview. Would you like to apologize for the names you called me? Then we can part ways.
Clearly.
Okay. Well, you know what? If you want to call me a putz, then I think you're a scumbag.
Okay,
so we're even.
Okay. Brian,
all right? No, it's not okay. If you want to use the courts and you want to sue me for calling you a scumbag, go ahead.
See you later, buddy.
Go ahead and sue me. Yeah, what a jerk. Yeah, there you go. And he hung up. He is a jerk. I gave him every opportunity in the world to defend his statements, and he couldn't defend any of them.
And that's a problem with kind of having that conspiracy theorist or that alt-right perspective that caters towards people who they could be racist, they could be very over the top in one direction. But when you say, because you kind of have to say things like that to really appease to your fan base, but then when you go on a show and you get questioned on those things, if you go back on them and say, well, I was wrong at the time, or I apologize for it, then your fan base goes, wait a minute, is this not real? And you say, well, I'm just an entertainer, and then you can't. It's really tough to do that as one of those guys who is kind of pandering towards one specific demographic who is looking for that very, very over-the-top, egregious, kind of outlandish perspective.
But look, he said a lot of controversial things in the past, but what is the root, for lack of a better term, of this conversation? Why did it start? It started because he was talking about this silver alkaline product, okay, which any logical human being would say there's no evidence to support the fact that it either kills the coronavirus but let's backtrack a little bit here. After that interview, in the next hour, we received a ton of phone calls. And listen, there's a lot of conservatives that listen to our show, and we appreciate that very much to try to hear both sides of issues. But many of those conservatives called into this show the next hour and said, great interview, good job, you got him. And he was exposed. Well, guess what? Some of those callers said he had just been fired from the Review Journal. And it was true. Wayne Allyn Root has written for the Review Journal for years with his articles. A statement from the Review Journal came out which says, increasingly, Mr. Root's advertising, marketing, and other media interest had begun to broadly diverge from the journalistic standards and intentions of the Review Journal. That compelled us to end our relationship with him. We wish him well. And by the way, if you really want to know why they fired him, well, guess what? They were asked, and in response to a follow-up question, Moyer said Root's silver promotions was indeed a factor in the paper's decision. But wait a second, it doesn't start there. It doesn't stop there with the fallout of Wayne Allyn Root. It doesn't stop there. Now there are legal ramifications. Wayne Allyn Root received a cease and desist letter notification from the Attorney General of New York. Mr. Root, the 2019 coronavirus poses serious consequences to both public health and consumers, and they are concerned as to how they can best protect themselves and their families, right? We're all concerned. Your representations may mislead consumers as to the effectiveness of the above-named product in protecting against the current outbreak. Both the Center for Disease Control and Prevention and the World Health Organization have stated that there is no specific medicine to prevent and treat this disease. You are hereby advised to immediately cease and desist from making misleading claims as they violate New York's consumer protection statutes. So I guess if Wayne was on our show right now, which he probably won't be because he's a coward, he'll never come on again. Who's the putz now, Wayne? Who's the putz now? You want to call me a putz? Who's the putz now? You got a cease and desist letter from the Attorney General. You were fired from the Review Journal because you make horrific and terrible comments, particularly about this coronavirus and this silver alkaline product. I know you want to brag to everybody that you're like, I don't know, I guess you're around 60, but you want to brag how great you look. And by the way, that's debatable, but you said that on the show, bragging about how you're a syndicated talk show host, bragging about your ratings, bragging about everything. Only an insecure little weasel does that sort of stuff. And by the way, I know plenty of people like that who want to brag about how much money they have, but those are the people that are poor. You want to brag. He thinks he's more important than he is. And I'm not going to spend any more time on him because he's pathetic. That's why. I proved him wrong. The Attorney General's got my back. And guess what? So does the Review Journal. I never thought I'd be praising the Review Journal today, but guess what? I am, because they made the right decision, and they know that he's bad news, man. He's bad news. And by the way, he's not the only one who's bad news.
Hey, didn't he start out as a sports handicapper, Brian?
But don't even get me started there.
He did, right?
Don't even get me started there.
That was his first, we'll call it, career.
Yeah, don't even
in Las Vegas.
Don't even get me started.
How did he operate as a sports handicapper?
I'm not even going to comment on that. I'll tell you off the air. I've got some stories that you wouldn't believe.
Was he successful?
I'm not going to comment on it. Like I said, I'm not going to comment on it. I want to stick to this subject. I can tell you some things off the air about his sports handicapping service, but I don't even want to spend any more time on him. Number to call, by the way, 702-257-5396 if you want to be a part of this conversation. What do you think of some of these people that are peddling some of these products with no proof that it cures the virus or can help you in any way with this virus? 702-257-5396. By the way, there's now a local commissioner in Florida who is apologizing after he made statements about possible coronavirus cures. During a meeting on Friday, this commissioner, Culpepper is his name, no relation to Dante, I don't think. Commissioner Culpepper said the doctor on a show said that to kill the virus needs to be exposed to high concentration of heat, about 163 degrees. Okay. He also said that the commissioner then suggested that holding a hairdryer up to one's nose and inhaling through the nose would be the best way to do that. I mean, things that are unsubstantiated.
We have
right?
that sound. All
right, go ahead and play
listen to this fool.
This might sound kind of silly, but being in the medical field that I was as a paramedic, it started to make a lot of sense. One of the things that was pointed out in this interview with one of the doctors, foremost doctors that has studied the coronavirus, says that the nasal passages and the nasal membranes are the coolest part of the body. That's why the virus tends to go there until it then becomes healthy enough to go into the lungs. This sounds really goofy, and it did to me too, but it works. Once the temperature reaches 136 degrees Fahrenheit, the virus falls apart and just disintegrates, okay? And I said, well, how would you get the temperature up to 132 degrees? The answer was you use a blow dryer because it's capable of doing that. So you hold a blow dryer in front of your face and you inhale with your nose, and it kills all the viruses in your nose. So that sounds like a really simplified way of doing things, but sometimes the cures for some of these diseases are very simple.
Yeah, very, very simple. He went on to say that a pot of water will work also. Have a listen to this.
Also, like if you're worried about it going into your lungs, just that's where it goes and turns into pneumonia. You can also put a pan of water on the stove where it starts to make steam and inhale it. So it sounds almost too easy. But at this point, I think, anything is worth trying. Just want to pass that off because that doesn't cost anything. Most everybody has a blow dryer. Everybody has a stove and can heat water up and can inhale that water. And you can also through your nose, and that also will kill it.
So speaking of inhaling, I'd like to know what this guy's been inhaling over the course of the last week. This nut job. You've done a great job, Florida, in putting this guy in office. I'll tell you that. By the way, since then, he has apologized. He said to all my Facebook friends, I'm heartfully sorry for the comments I made on social media. I was only, by the way, he didn't make the comments on social media. He also made comments.
It was at a meeting.
Yeah, I don't know why he said that. I was only trying to give comfort to those in need and have no insurance to treat their families.
And you should see his fellow commissioners just with their heads in their hands and rolling, like, oh God, here he goes again. And then one, you can't see it. There's one woman on the panel, and she goes, all right, well, we're going to caution people not to read too much into what they see on the news about these cures. I mean, it was a disaster.
He went on to say, I will not offer any more suggestions unless they are tried and proven. Well, I have a suggestion for you. Why don't you go to a psych ward, you freak? He said, I ask for all your forgiveness for anything. And then, of course, he's talked about God. God bless and soften your hearts. Shut up. Just quarantine yourself. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. I have to get my hairdryer because I have to blow a hairdryer up my nose because apparently that will just disintegrate the virus, as he said. 702-257-5396. Go to Mike. Mike, you're first up on the Vegas Take. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Hey, guys. Hey, to quote Ronald Reagan, either you control your government or your government will control you. Okay? Listen, Brian, if somebody wants to try, I see what you're saying, people making, claims about it. But if somebody wants to try something, President Trump signed the right to try bill on something. If you want to
That's not what they're saying, Mike. That's not what they're saying. They're not saying you can try something. I wouldn't have as much of a problem with that. You heard what this commissioner just said in Florida. He said it kills the virus. We had Wayne Allyn Root on the show Friday who's peddling a product who tweeted kills virus. If they want to tweet, Mike, I have no problem with them saying, hey, maybe try this. I don't know if it'll help you. Worth a try. There's a fine line between saying something like that and then saying it kills the virus. Do you understand that distinction?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but look, like I said before, I'm old enough to remember in this country where there was no such thing as AIDS. It came along in the 70s and 80s. It was a time in this country and the world there was no AIDS. Viruses are going to come. It's a part of it. You're not going to, in your lifetime, new diseases and new viruses are going to come. You cannot freak out and shut the whole world down when something new comes out. So you think that there should be no government shutdowns and you're okay with the casinos being open right now? Either you control your government or your government. Listen, this is not – it's an excellent article in the Review Journal by Steve Sibylla. Las Vegas is not the town to close down. Listen, you cannot do that here. The economy here is not diversified enough. You have one economy. That's gaming and tourism. And all right, well, let me ask you a question. Would you rather have the economy tank for a little while or would you rather have a lot of people die? What we do know, Brian, is only 200-some people have died. Not true. Not true. First of all, right, I appreciate the call, but
479 people have died. 2 have died in Nevada. I will say this about 3 states, California, Washington, and New York, are responsible for nearly 60% of the deaths.
The problem is we can't have misinformation on this show. Over 400 people have died. The problem is more people are going to die. And if you are at a certain age where you contract the virus or you have other health conditions, there's a good chance that this could kill you. And I'm not trying to scare people. I understand, Mike, that you're concerned about the economy. But you know what I'm concerned about before the economy? People and people's lives. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Carl. Carl, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Carl?
Hey, Brian, JD. Listen, the guy, I think, put the hairdryer to his ear and it cooked his brain. I think that's probably what happened.
You're probably right, yeah.
Yeah. And if you're near your kitchen, I like my bacon crisp. I just want to let you know. So
I'll keep that in mind.
But on the positive side of things, Trump did make a statement on Sunday that when we talked about this last week, but that drug chloroquine mixed with azithromycin, the Z-Pak, where they did the study in France, where they had 30 people, and after 6 days the virus was completely removed from their system.
And then Dr. Fauci played it down.
No,
Yeah.
Brian, stop.
What do you mean stop? It's true.
First of all, New York State is starting a trial tomorrow.
And there's no evidence to support the fact that it's going to work.
750,000 chloroquine pills.
Because they're desperate.
No, they're not. It has nothing to do with desperation, Brian. They're getting closer to a treatment. They're getting closer.
You don't know that.
And your issue is, and actually this is a very consistent Democratic perspective, your issue is that Donald Trump is backing it.
Donald Trump said he's usually right, and he's giving people hope, and I believe it is false hope. That is the issue that we have.
You don't think that chloroquine and azithromycin together
is
going to help you? You think
Here's
that,
what I do think.
Here, listen to this, Brian. So that study that was done in France, where they had 30 patients, and all 30 of them were cured by the disease in 6 days.
Here's what I do
think. It had a 1 in 10,000 chance of producing the results that it did. Do you understand how aggressive that data is?
Here's what I do think. You're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor.
just
Hold on,
saying,
let me
Brian.
finish. Let me finish. You're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Donald Trump is certainly not a doctor. You know who is a doctor? Dr. Fauci. Hold on, let me finish.
Are the doctors in France who started that trial, are they doctors?
Let me finish.
Or not?
Let me finish.
Or are they just standard civilians?
I'm trying to finish my statement. Dr. Fauci is a doctor, and Dr. Fauci all weekend, and by the way, we're going to play some of that and talk about it. Dr. Fauci all weekend has been trying to downplay Donald Trump's comments, saying that there is no specific evidence to support the fact that these drugs are 100% going to work. What he is saying, hold on, what he is saying,
Brian, 100% is not the conversation.
what he is saying is that we're basically, I'm not giving you verbatim, but what I'm doing is generalizing what he said. We're going to give it a try, nothing to lose. But there is no evidence to support that it's going to work, and it is irresponsible. Let's take some more phone calls.
If 80% of people are treated successfully, then it's obviously working. If 60% of people are treated successfully,
evidence to
it
support
doesn't
that.
always have to be. No, there is evidence. Brian, there was a
Not
trial.
in this country.
There was a trial done in France. 30 people were given that particular hydrogen drug combination, and all 30 of them had the virus.
Then why is Dr. Fauci
out of their
saying that
system
it's going to work?
entirely?
Then why isn't the doctors in this country saying it's going to work?
Because there is not a lot of consistent empirical evidence.
Exactly.
And also, you have an actor. You have two different actors who said that they were also given chloroquine, and it was removed from their system as well. It helped them recover from the virus.
And we don't know if what was given to him helped them cure the virus, or they just the virus left their system like anybody else. We don't know the answer to that. Very dangerous to say that it's going to work when we don't know if it's going to work. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Dwayne. Dwayne, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Dwayne?
Check this out, guys. I drive for Uber and Lyft, okay? And we're out here working, okay? And there's no cabs really out here, okay? So the Uber and Lyft drivers, we're taking a big chance getting exposed, okay? Because we're on 1099.
No question.
We cannot go and get unemployment. We
Right.
have to keep working. So nobody's really giving us anything. All this information that's out here, this drug's going to work, or we got this. You know what? I think they should leave it to the medicals, to the doctors.
Thank you.
To figure it out, because what happens is you got all these Uber drivers out here, like I said, and Lyft drivers, and people out here going, what the hell are they talking about? One guy says this, another guy says that.
Exactly.
But, we sit around, we talk amongst ourselves, and we go, well, you know what? Let's just wait it out. 3 months from now, 4 months from now.
And Dwayne, can I just add something? It's sending mixed messages, and for somebody like you, that is, and by the way, thank you for what you're doing, and I appreciate you. For somebody like you who is dealing with a lot of people, picking up a lot of people in your car, you don't want to hear mixed messages, right? You want to hear the same message from the president all the way down, and that's not happening, Dwayne, and that's my issue.
Well, no, it ain't happening because, see, we wipe our cars down every time somebody gets in and out of our cars, okay? So we constantly going through more, Lysol. We can't even find Lysol, okay? Because people have just gotten crazy and buy 3 or 4 bottles, or they buy the whole case.
Yeah.
I went into to Walmart to get a can of Lysol spray. Guess what?
Yeah.
They had 6 of them in a cart.
And people like that are idiots. They really are. They're selfish idiots. Dwayne, thank you for what you do. Thank you for being out there and giving people rides and doing your good work. I'm sorry that you're put in a situation where you're in fear that you might get this virus, but we hope you stay safe, Wayne, and Dwayne, and we really do appreciate the phone call. 702-257.
Good call, Dwayne.
702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Brady. Brady, you're next on the Vegas Take.
Hey, what's up, Brady?
Good morning, gentlemen. Hey, I have to go to bat for my brother-in-arms, Wayne Allyn Root. I've liked that guy for years since he's been on the radio here. You got to give him a little credit
shocking.
for what he's done.
Credit for what? What has he done? What has he done?
Well, hang on. He's been he's one of the reasons.
What should I give him credit for?
He helped Donald Trump get elected. How's that?
How did he help Donald Trump get elected?
By spreading the word of how rotten the Democrats are.
Right. He spread the word. You're right. He's responsible. He's the reason why. Okay, next. What else should I give him credit for? What else should I give him credit for?
Okay.
Name me one other thing.
I think loyal silver is a very, very good thing to be taken.
Are you serious? He just got a letter from the Attorney General, and now you're defending it? You're no better than him. You're a scumbag.
Correct.
All right, get lost. Get Brady off the line. Anyone who's going to defend this guy and defend this silver alkaline is a moron.
Yeah, good call, Brady.
Yeah, great call. What a doofus. Give this guy credit. I'll give you credit for being an idiot and making this show more entertaining. All right, Brady? 702-257-5396. Let's go to Robert. Robert, you're next on the Vegas Take.
Hey, what's up, Robert?
Hey, man. I was reading my emails today, and I got this email from some, there's always a bunch of unknown companies on there, and it's talking about the mask. So it's got about, I don't know, probably the ad has maybe 10,000 words about why you need it and what you better have it and all. So then you get down to the bottom and it says, to find out, more information on whether or not you can get it. Like the guy doesn't have enough of them to sell.
Right. Robert, can I interject real quick? Robert, can I just ask you a question real quick? I apologize because we're got time constraints, but from what I've heard about these masks, Robert, is that they can do more harm than good. The only way it can help is if you're not, it'll help you not spread the virus, but it doesn't protect you, Robert.
That's not my point. Here, listen to my point real quick. The mask is $39.99. It's
oh my God! Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding, and that's what was on my email. And then it has a timer saying you've only got 12 minutes left to buy it.
Oh,
and,
my God.
There's a lot of people that are, scared to death. My neighbors, they won't even come out of their house. They're the types that fund these idiots like this.
There you go.
How do you catch these guys? I'd love to say, hey,
I
man,
know.
I'll buy the mask. Meet me behind Circle K.
Robert, I am so glad that you brought that up because, as you heard earlier in this segment, I'm talking about, people that take advantage of people during these difficult times. Robert, that is a perfect example that you just gave, my friend. I appreciate you doing that for our listeners, and thank you so much. Appreciate it, Robert. 702-257-5396. Robert just called up and he said, listen, there's people that are selling masks for $40. Those people are disgusting. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll take more of your calls at 702-257-5396. It could be, some of the trials and tribulations you're going through. How was your weekend and this coronavirus thing? What did you do this weekend? And I'm also going to talk a little bit about the president's response to it. The president's response to it, Fauci seems to be frustrated. And, a lot of people want an end to the lockdown. So we're going to talk about that coming up next. 702-257-5396. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.